Testing. Okay.
All right, Sarah, can you hear me? Okay, Emily's just loading up to YouTube or to the website.
As you can probably tell, I did make it back by the skin of my teeth. So
so glad.
I even was able to check a few kids for ticks.
All right, David's just having a few little audio issues, so we're just going to try to let him figure that out. We do have all members in attendance. James is recording, and we are live on YouTube.
Try that. Is that audio good?
Is that better?
Okay, you can hear me now? Okay.
We can hear you, but it's still coming through on your computer. Okay.
I can hear David perfectly fine if that's helpful.
And there's no echo for anybody?
If you can try it again, David, but I didn't catch one.
This sounds okay right now? Sounds
Yeah,
fine?
no, you sound great
Okay.
to me.
All right,
Okay.
thank you.
Great, then I will call us to order at 7:02. All right, first up we have public comment. If anyone wants to make a public comment, please raise your hand using that function with Zoom. I will need people's full names and addresses. Okay, I am not seeing any hands raised, so I will move us to the exciting part of our evening, which is the Planning for Success Superintendent's Advisory Committee membership. John?
So can everyone hear me? Am I coming through? As you might anticipate, this was a process that generated a good deal of interest. Not in every category, but in the parent category for sure. So we have 3 drawings that we will do this evening. I want to thank Sarah Fox for giving me some guidance on this as she went through the superintendent search and had to navigate this process for robust community interest and how to do it in a way that's fair. So very scientifically, I have grab bags here. And so I will show the names to the people that are here. So you see the names going into said bags. You have Reese Dahlberg. You have Kate Schmeckpepper. You have Katie Menlinson. I hope I said that name correctly.
Or Melanson.
And Mimi LeMay. In the bag, shaking it up, looking away, hopefully the TV audience is following. The first person to be on Planning for Success will be Reese Dahlberg.
Awesome.
For an elementary parent.
This is elementary? Okay.
This is elementary parent. And so we shake again, looking away, reaching into the bag, and the second person will be Mimi LeMay. So
Awesome.
those will be our 2 elementary school representatives. And again, as I put out in the overview of this process, just because you're not on the planning team does not mean that you won't have an opportunity to contribute to the process and be part of giving your opinions and thoughts and ideas for those strategic objectives that we will eventually get to. So the next is middle school. Again, highly scientific. Dump out the names in the bag. There are 2 people for the middle school. You have Jeff St. George. And you have Melissa Kaplowich. Again, shake it up. Reach into the bag. Make sure it's totally scientific. And the person is Jeff St. George. Our last will be the high school. Dumping out the names. You have 2 people vying for the 1 spot, Lucy Burke. And Kim Day. Good thing I didn't have to go through this for all. Reaching into the bag, not looking, pulling a name out, and that person is Lucy Burke. So just to update people on the other, I'm getting an echo now.
I don't hear it.
Okay. The teacher rep at the middle school will be Tawny Callahan. There are 2 teachers vying for the high school spot, so I will go over to the high school tomorrow and draw those names in front of those 2 teachers. Our 2 community members are Merle Shell and again with the echo, Merle Shell and Cindy Lowenson. Or Lowen, I'm sorry. 2 school committee members are Sarah Fox and Megan Taylor, and the 2 students, current 10th grader Ariel Mogalesco and current junior Benjamin Kahn. And Jason Silva did agree since our last meeting, or maybe I announced this at our last meeting, but would be joining the community as a community rep as well. Monique Lloyd will be the Metco parent representative, and Scott Solberg will be the CPAC rep.
Did we have a K through 6 teacher? I missed that one.
We do have K through 6 teacher, Diane Babbitt. Again, I'm getting that echo.
Whenever someone in the room is unmuted, it
Yeah.
happens.
So Diane Babbitt is one of the elementary reps, and the second rep is TBD, because I got an email today that may have changed the second rep. So I want to touch base with those building principals if someone has changed their mind and somebody else is interested in doing it to work through that. So that would be the elementary. But thank you for everyone that has expressed interest. And I'm looking forward to the process that starts Tuesday at 9 o'clock, and we will be in the field house at the high school because I don't think the weather is going to be super nice for us to be out under the tent. So we'll be in the field house. And thank you to Mr. Bauer for relocating some lunches and PE classes to accommodate us. And that's all I have.
Great, Megan.
So this is great. I'm really excited about it. I think it's a great committee. And I just want to thank, obviously, everyone who's put their name in to be part of this. And I'm looking forward to getting it underway and getting the strategic plan put together. I think it's really exciting, and I'm glad we're moving it forward. John, thank you.
Yep.
Great, and thank you to everyone who put their name out there and expressed interest. And that's a really important part of this this process. So best of luck to you guys as you start along on this. I'm excited. All right, so that moves us to our next agenda item, which is the review of the policy EBCFA, the face coverings. So Emily and I met on the policy subcommittee this Monday morning, and we took a look at this policy first. So there's been plenty kind of going on this week as far as face coverings go within the state, and sort of it's changing some of the changing guidance that is coming out from the CDC. And so I anticipate this, David, you kind of teed it up last Thursday at our meeting that there are changes coming down the pike. I anticipate there to probably be multiple changes in this. I think this is probably going to be something that we need to continue to look at just based on this week alone. The CDC stuff came out. I had been paying more attention to things over the weekend, reading about things. There's plenty of scientific information coming out on outdoors. There's the MEAA, I believe, weighed in on outdoor sports earlier this week. I believe MIAA met today. We're kind of hoping that DESE comes along and does some updated guidance on this as well. So I anticipate this to change probably many times. And I think, hopefully it's going to change in the positive many times. I think these are exciting changes that all say that we are headed out of COVID and all the COVID restrictions. And so we will make sure that we will be fluid with that. So you guys all had in your Dropbox the current mask policy, which had been revised in March a little bit, and then the new revisions. So also, we should, best practice is that Emily and I meet with the subcommittee, we present these to the full committee at an open meeting, and then we vote at an additional open meeting, so kind of like 3 public readings. I had suggested last Thursday that so that we could continue to move this along and not kind of waste time for, a few reasons, that if possible, we vote some of these changes this evening if the committee feels ready to do so. So the first round of changes that were in the Dropbox are that masks should be worn by all individuals in school buildings, on school grounds, and during school hours and at school-sponsored events. So right now we have them worn whenever someone is on school grounds at any point, regardless of what's going on. I think backing it off and saying that just for school things is a highly appropriate thing to do right now. We did have some pretty vocal group show up at our meeting on Monday morning and request that we take a further dive and talk about masks and whether they're necessary when children are outdoors at all. So Emily, do you want to jump in and give your perspective at any point? Go ahead. So I think that is sort of what's to be put out, what's to be considered this evening. And I think, there's plenty to discuss within that. So I'll stop talking for a moment if anybody else wants to talk. Emily?
So just the request was from the parents was for us to look at the idea of having masks be optional at recess. So that when children go out to play, I think they also, if gym was outside, that they could remove their masks if they wanted to, as long as they kept a 6-foot distance. And that, which I personally think is something we should consider and think about, but I know that there's going to be a lot of logistics that go into that, and people probably have thoughts on it on both sides. So I think the best thing for us to do is to get feedback on what the rest of our committee feels, on what the community feels, because we did listen to one set of people, and I think it's only right, because this is a big deal, to listen to everybody else, to everyone have equal weigh in. But I think it is something we should look into more, and I support it. But I want to give everyone the fair, their fair voice to be heard.
Mm-hmm. John, I know you did a little bit of background this week, just kind of what other districts might be doing. Do you have any information that you wanted to share with us on that?
Yes, it is probably as current as when I sent the survey out after Monday's meeting, but the North Shore Superintendent's 23 districts responded, and no one was looking at mask policies of changing them on Tuesday of this week. But as Sarah pointed out, just as recently as today, the CDC has come out with a new update. And so I can imagine that perhaps, David, as you said in the fall, Marblehead could be leaders in this sphere. And although the conversation wasn't happening, I anticipate most superintendents were looking at it. We have 5 weeks left. We've finally gotten the schools open. We opened them by telling families we would have face mask and social distancing and continue with our pool testing efforts and hand washing. And some of those things have changed since we made that commitment. And I do think that it's right, but I would want us to provide an opportunity for, like I said, Monday, people don't normally come to a policy meeting. And so people that would be proponents of us maintaining mask probably didn't think there was a need to come to that. And now that we're talking about it in an open forum and in the public, that those who support the idea of allowing students at recess or during PE to go without a mask, it is important to note that developmentally, elementary school children are not going to be able to socially distance. And so the mask, where they say you don't have to have a mask if you can socially distance, our elementary school students, that's a big ask. And I'm not saying that we don't look at the mask policy. I'm not saying that there's not merit to the science emerging that being outdoors and the transmission concerns that might have been there in the past. But I do think it is prudent that, given the changing landscape and announcing it tonight, that you provide the opportunity for the sports medicine group that met today. I did call Bill Gain at the MIAA and ask him, and he said really they're in this procedural loop right now because EEA produced some guidance on Monday, and MIAA has tried to be in line with the EEA guidance all year for each season of play. And so they met this afternoon at 4 o'clock. Their recommendations will not go in effect until the full board meets, and the MIAA full board is meeting next Thursday, when we also have a meeting. So the results of that meeting would be known at your next meeting. And also DESE has not updated their guidance. My guess is that they will. Right now, their published guidance is that if you're going to do a graduation, it has to be outside and masked. Now, that may likely change before we get to June 4th, but I think putting it out there for the public to weigh in, and there's never a shortage of people willing to provide us insight, and then taking it up at next Thursday's meeting, given that you'll have a week's worth of additional information. But for tonight, lifting the during school hours or providing the caveat that people wear masks on school property only during school hours at school-sponsored events, I think is a prudent step at this time.
Yeah, so I absolutely agree that that first set, the red that occurs on that policy that's in the Dropbox, can and should be voted this evening. I think, that opens things up to the different sports and everything, and parents taking their children to the schools after school and on the weekend. So I think that is absolutely sort of within what we should do. I would really like to see us be able to give kids the option to unmask when they're outside. I do think, in the experience that I have, elementary school students just are not, especially at recess and PE, just are not going to be able to socially distance. And I think some of that, there's a bit of a catch here, because some of the pieces around removing the mask is about them being able to see a full expression and everything. And yet if they have to keep 6 foot distance, that inhibits how they're able to play, what they're able to do. And again, I just don't see them really being able to do that anyways. The catch on this for me is that currently the state mandate that is from Governor Baker says that that you have to be masked if you cannot socially distance outside. So I think, and that DESE can weigh in and overrule that, but that without that, that's the state mandate. I am hopeful that, again, as these other organizations are looking to change things, that either the state and or DESE does the same so that it frees us to really make these decisions that I think are very supported by science at this point. The reading that I did over last weekend personally was really exciting to me because I had kind of been caught in this, like, I don't know where we're at right now. And then sort of educated myself and we're in a good place. So I'm really hopeful that the mandates and such catch up to that really fast, because it does seem as though the risk of transmission, regardless of social distancing outside, is incredibly low. And all of the key researchers who I've followed for quite some time are saying that. So that's kind of where my head is at. Megan, I know you had your hand raised.
So I appreciate that update and all the kind of work you have all done on this. I have a couple questions. So with the change that you're proposing, does that include pickup and drop off for parents?
I mean, that is after school hours.
Okay. And then I know you mentioned the MIA just met this afternoon, but have you heard any feedback from them? You have not. Okay. And the other thing I just wanted to mention is with the recess, I hear your point about, especially the younger kids being able to maintain the distance without a lot of oversight. But for gym class, I guess I'm wondering if we could at least kind of ask the administration and the PE teachers to kind of put their heads together and see if there is a way to have those gym classes unmasked, because that is a much more structured time. And I think, John, you said there's 5 weeks, so it's, not that many gym classes, but maybe there's something that we can do there to modify what they had planned and do that unmasked outside. Because gym, I think, I would like to see the gym classes outside as much as possible right now, unless the weather isn't permitting. And if we can make that structured in a way that they could take their masks off, I would like to see if you guys could come back to us with that. That would be great. I agree with Emily and what you said, also with what you said with the risk is extremely low outside. I would like to see us get to this point. But I take your point about, making sure that we have the feedback from other parents also on both sides of the issue. And also, there's more information that we know is coming in the week. So I think it makes sense to kind of get that information and make the right decision, because we have been, we have kind of taken methodical steps throughout this, and hopefully we're close to being able to lift that piece. But we probably should get the information that we need to make the right decision. And
Sarah?
I think that's it. Yep.
I also want to make sure, and John Foskett should be able to speak to this, that any further changes in the mask policy, i.e. having students unmasked during the school day, will not put us in breach of contract with our MOU, because we have to be very cognizant that we do have an MOU. And although I don't have the language in front of me, I just want to make sure that we're not putting ourselves in breach.
John, I was going to pipe in, but you go ahead.
Yeah, we did. No, not John Foskett, John Bucky. We did raise this with MEA at our Tuesday meeting, that this would be a conversation at the school committee level, and what some of the conversation coming out of the policy subcommittee. So that is a conversation that has already begun with them.
Am I correct in my understanding, though, that as it currently stands, without a change, we would be putting ourselves in breach?
I don't think so, but I would want to clarify that with the other John.
Right. And I think that's another step away where I agree, Sarah, that will probably come to a point maybe in the next 5 weeks based on what was announced today by the CDC. But I think the first step is just being outdoors. And is it safe to say, I mean, based on what you're saying, with MIAA and the information. I know Greg's on, but it's status quo. Athletes are wearing masks when they're in the field for all sporting events, and they're going to be meeting to see how that might potentially change next week. But right now, that is still in place.
That is correct.
And I think that the town guidance, I'm just not really sure about the policy that, the face covering policies during school hours at school sponsored events. So if there's a baseball game at Seaside today, that's a school sponsored event, I guess.
I've seen Seaside as Park and Rec jurisdiction, and so it's a team. So they have to be following the
The
MIAA.
team does, right, but
Right.
parents or visitors
Yeah, I think
to the field,
the school sponsored event is more
school buildings or school grounds.
right, and like graduation.
Okay. All right. And I agree. I think, the outdoors piece of it. I mean, there's still also the 15-minute rule, so, or at least that's the way they talk about. I don't know how long recess is these days, but maybe there could be a recess that's less than 15 minutes and everybody's without masks for a period of the day, and it keeps us within, within the guidelines. I think we need to continue to move in that direction, and today's announcement was certainly one of those. I think, even though it's, we don't know who's been vaccinated and who hasn't, but it's up to the individuals that have been vaccinated to be able to take their masks off now, and that's what they're saying, and we have to have confidence that people that are following that are in fact vaccinated and have taken the proper steps. But I think just like a week ago Friday, when the state changed their guidance and then towns and schools sort of reviewed what was going on and it lags a little bit behind, I think that's where we're at today. The announcements just continue to change, and it's a very fluid process. So I would like to think that we don't just stick with it because, as Dr. Bucky said, graduation is about a month away. And maybe if things change, it will make it easier on Dan for the scheduling of parents and how they come to the event and how they leave the event, and those kinds of things based on the requirements. So yeah.
If the goal is to make it so that, adults and vaccinated adults and parents and whatnot can make their own decision off of school property, i.e., I'll use David's example of Seaside. I don't believe this language accomplishes that goal. That is a school sponsored event for liability purposes. That's, what they would define as a school sponsored event. So if that is the goal, I just don't believe this language accomplishes that. So you might want to go back and sharpen your pencil and change the language again, because the way this reads, at a school sponsored event, a high school or whatnot, sports event is a school sponsored event.
I'm happy to look through the chair. I'm happy to look at the language. I continue to be in close contact with Andrew Petty at Board of Health to make sure that we are saying the same things, because he's getting a number of questions from Rec and Park about youth leagues and youth sports and those parameters. But I think if you wanted to say at school sponsored events held on school property or something like that. But again, I can work with John Foskett to look at that language.
Yeah, and exactly. I mean, our counsel is here, this is his thing. So not that he needs to give us an answer today, but he's hearing our concern and he's hearing what the will of the committee is. And so all I am saying is that language isn't accomplishing this goal.
So if we, go ahead, Meg.
Well, I was just going to say that, like, I read it differently, right? So, I read like on school grounds during school hours, but if it's not it has to be crystal clear, like Sarah said, so that there is no ambiguity, so that everyone knows what the expectation is.
So Sarah, can you give me that language again? So during school hours, at
It
school.
reads, must be worn by all individuals in school buildings, on school grounds, during school hours, at school sponsored events, and on school transportation, even when social distancing is observed.
So if we took out the comma at on school grounds, so it would read in school buildings, on school grounds, during school hours.
Well, I honestly, Sarah, I think we have counsel, let them wordsmith. We shouldn't be wordsmithing this, let them do it. And we can approve this as is now, but if that is the clarification you're seeking, then just have them do it so that it reads the appropriate way. But we can approve this like this. And as you said, things will be coming back. So at least approve it the way it is. So we get that much done, at least, youth lacrosse, youth soccer, and all those people can make their own decision. And then, John hears us, John Foskett hears us. He can, correspond and give us, I'm sure if John gets, I'm sure he has the policy that we're providing. He knows what the goal is, and he can produce that. I just wanted to clarify that, the language, the way it is, reads that way.
I'm not an attorney, but the way I read the language is like I see a school sponsored event being like if there was some music presentation or a theater event at 7 o'clock at night. And I'm not really seeing a baseball game at Seaside being a school sponsored event, but it probably could be. So yeah, I guess, why don't we just, I'm in favor of making a motion to approve this change, and it gives some additional flexibility for groups that are using athletic fields on weekends and after hours, and for parents who are on playgrounds and the like, not during school hours. It gives some additional flexibility there for mask wearing, and we're meeting again next week, and we'll just keep reviewing it.
So is that your motion?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to accept EBCFA face coverings as revised on 5/13.
Okay, so moved. I mean, second.
All
Whatever
right.
I'm supposed to say.
Great. And then, as I said from the beginning, we're going to continue to take a look at this. And I am hopeful that in addition to the little pieces that we just talked about being able to kind of, with school-sponsored events, kind of really figuring that out, that by the time next Thursday rolls around, we'll have more updated guidance on the mandates and all of that, particularly as it pertains to outside.
And feasibility on the PE classes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. All right. Anybody else have anything to say on that?
And recess, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm open
right.
to the suggestion you made too. Absolutely. So.
Yep. Yep. All right. I will roll call vote. Sarah Gold, yes. Emily Barron,
Yes.
Megan Taylor,
Yes.
Sarah Fox,
Yes.
and David Harris.
Yes.
All right. Those changes pass 5-0. Thank you, everyone. And everyone else, stay tuned, because I'm sure that those will not be the last changes. Okay, that leads us on to the open meeting law complaint discussion. About a week and a half ago, we all received an open meeting law complaint form from Jen Schaffner regarding the gathering that took place at my home about a month ago, where I had taken a picture and then it was posted to Facebook, and then it was sent around a little bit. So there were 3 of us there. I addressed it in the meeting immediately after, and had made it what I thought was clear, that there was, that we did not deliberate at this meeting. We did not discuss and deliberate. We did make a toast to finishing up the budget season and to the imminent return of kids into schools the preceding week. But That was it. So it has to be brought to an open meeting. And I've talked with the AG's office. So this complaint has to be brought to an open meeting and discussed in an open meeting. And then, as I'm understanding it, the committee as a whole votes on whether or not we believe that there was an open meeting law violation. And then we submit that back to the Attorney General's office.
So I had reached out to the AG's office when, this first came up, because I had some people come to me and spoke with the attorney for the day on 2 different days. And like Sarah said, we're definitely following the process on this. They explained, the next point would be that we would file our response with the clerk, the AG's office, and the filing party. The filing party would determine at that point if whatever decision we came to and or remediation plan we came to was acceptable. If they felt it was not acceptable, then the AG's office would assign someone to it, at which point they would interview all parties in attendance and ask certain questions. So I think that we should just go over those items anyway now. And they were, who was in attendance, what was discussed, items like that. I will say, I think a good rule of thumb is if an event, and again, this is hindsight, in fairness, hindsight's always 2020. If an event produces this much angst or anxiety among individuals in the community, it's probably a good idea to, either post just to be sure, which, in fairness, I'm sure Sarah doesn't want to post a meeting for her backyard, or avoid it. That being said, I think it's important to discuss who was in attendance as the baseline.
Sure.
Well,
So we can, just 2 seconds. We had already discussed it. So it was myself and Megan and Emily, and then Dr. Bucky was there for a little while as well. So that, just so that everyone is clear again. David, go ahead.
I just wanted to say that I think was it a month ago that you made your prepared statement, Sarah Gold? So
Yes.
we were here and Sarah read a long statement. It's been recorded and it's in the minutes, and I don't need to go over that. But I think to bring the event to the level of an open meeting violation is just absurd. It's disappointing that we've reached this level of discourse in all parts of government and finger pointing, and the fact that we have a committee that can be together socially, that can get along, that can work to move issues forward, and now we're trying to divide that by saying, people can't get together this summer at the Dolphin and sit on the deck, or people can't get together in somebody's backyard, or people can't be together at graduation because we need to post being together at graduation because we might be talking about something that's, let's be real. There was no deliberation. I wasn't at the event, but I know that Sarah Gold, Megan, Emily, and Dr. Bucky fully understand their responsibilities as school members. And the essence of the open meeting law is that you don't deliberate, that we don't post an agenda and the 4 of us get on a conference call and say, okay, how are you going to vote on Thursday night? Well, I think we ought to vote this way. It's foolhardy to think that any of those conversations took place. And even though I wasn't there, I'm going to back up every committee member as well as the superintendent who's been a principal for his career. Now he's a sitting superintendent and he understands that open meeting law better than anybody. So I'm disappointed that it's even come to this level. And I think we should just move on and whatever we need to do. If I need to make a motion that I don't think there was any violation of the open meeting law, I'll make the motion and let's just move on from this. It's absolutely ridiculous. As far as the event, Sarah Gold once again spoke to the event. She made comments. It's on public record about what their feelings were about that. And I think it was very well received, but there was no way it was an open meeting law violation. And that's how I feel about it.
So Dave, hold on, because David made a motion. So do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, so Megan seconded. So now we can have discussion. Go ahead, Megan.
So David, I appreciate what you said and I thank you. That said, I have absolutely nothing to hide about this night. So yes, I was there. Did we deliberate or even talk about it? No. Should we have should Sheriff posted it? No. But as soon as we realized that it was an issue, Sarah took immediate proactive steps. She proactively called the Attorney General's office. She proactively addressed it in an open school committee meeting. And she proactively took accountability, as did we all, a month ago. So, I'm sorry it's gotten to this point. I really am. The only other thing I'll say, Sarah Fox, just to your point, is we are going to be together outside of open meetings. Graduation, David, is a good example. We march in the Christmas parade. We go on building tours.
We sat together at town meeting.
Yeah, town meeting. Like, we are going to be together outside of public meetings. And to suggest that we have to post that every time, I don't think is appropriate. And in terms of the open meeting law, that is not what's required through the open meeting law. So I take the law very seriously, and I would never put myself in a situation where I would be violating an open meeting law. So I'm sorry it's gotten to this point. I cannot apologize enough, but I do think, to say that we have to post anytime three of us are going to be together is not the right step either.
Emily?
So I just thank you, David, for saying that. And like Megan said, I appreciate it because I was there. And like Megan said, I have nothing to hide either. But I just have two things I want to share. And one of them is from, the AG's office. It's what is it called? The Open Meeting Law Guide and Educational Materials, which you are supposed to sign when you when you get elected into office. So I have this from last year, and I'm just going to read what it says about open meeting law, just so everybody is clear in what it actually says. So a meeting, a deliberation by a public body with respect to any matter within the body's jurisdiction, provided, however, meeting shall not include attendance of a quorum of a public body at a public or private gathering, including a conference or training program or media or social or other event, as long as members do not deliberate. So the Webster definition of deliberate, because they don't ever define deliberate, because I think it's ambiguous on what, because there's room to wiggle. So to be clear, deliberation means the act of thinking about or discussing something and deciding carefully is the act of deliberating. And I can tell you, since the budget was already voted, we didn't decide anything. We didn't talk about it, discuss it. There was other people there, and you can ask them if you'd like. We talked about so many other things that had nothing to do with school committee because it wasn't the place or the time. So I just want to make that clear to everybody and everybody who's listening. So we did not do anything wrong, and we will meet, and we are allowed to gather outside of this group. So I just want to say that's it.
Sarah Fox?
I'm sorry if you understood what I was saying is anytime you're together, you need to post. That was not my intention. And you certainly are allowed to gather, if you're friends, you can have a picnic together, 4th of July party together, things like that. But the idea is, you're talking about your kids' soccer or, your house renovation or, just general life things. the crux of this problem, I think, is what the tagline was on this, where it says cheers and job well done to balance budget and kids in school, which are 100% the purview of the school committee. Now, deliberation is sharing any form of your opinion on a school matter. Cheers to a job well done is certainly a celebration and or an opinion. And as you know, because we've changed our vote multiple times on various things, and we've made motions to amend a previously passed motion, that no motion's dead. So I think that we are probably beating this more than we need to. My point is the requested remediation is that we do a training in open meeting law, which I don't actually think is negative impact whatsoever.
I don't
for
think,
anybody.
sorry.
If I may, thank you. So I wasn't there. I wasn't aware it was happening. I think it's really, you know, it's the words that were paired with the photo claiming that it was a celebration of purview items of the school committee. So, you know, again, do members of this body have have the ability to have their own private lives? Most certainly. You know, 4 of us have children the exact same age. Our lives will overlap. We will be at the same events. You know, camaraderie has been formed at times, and that is not necessarily a bad thing. I think where the ambiguity lies for me is the words and the verbiage used as it pertains to one of our biggest responsibilities, arguably, 2 of them actually, balancing the budget and kids in school. So I think that, you know, it's the claim that's made there that makes it really hard here. And again, I don't think it's, you know, I did not read any of this that anybody's asking for 40 lashings or anything else. It's simply the process of the self-reporting, which is easy. It's just, you know, you self-report and no one gets reprimanded. Nothing happens. You just have to do the online class or something, which I'm happy to take. I think we all should be happy to take.
I think we all taken it as well when we first became school committee members.
No, but I mean, just a refresher, you know, if you will. And again, it's the will of the committee, and we'll vote on the will of the committee. There's a motion on the table, but I wanted to clarify because I didn't want, you know, anybody to misread and say that you need to post the Christmas parade or post Saturday soccer games or things like that. I think it's because of the language that was put with the post that made it, in my mind, problematic.
Megan, did you want to say something, or David? We both were unmuted.
I mean, I think we have done 1 and 3 at this point. You know, the training, you know, I've done the training. I've signed off on doing the training. If we all want to do the training again, I mean,
I don't know. I mean,
it's not a big deal, but I think we already proactively addressed 1 and 3 anyway, in terms of the request. And, you know, we've had the feedback from the Attorney General's office, and I think we should just move forward and put it to bed. Like, just let's be done. This is honestly, I don't think, you know, yes, was it a mistake? Okay, sure. I think we've acknowledged that in terms of the posting piece of it. But, you know, this is not what I want to spend my time on in terms of moving the district forward. That's where we should be focused our time on in these meetings, is how do we move this district forward? How do we make this district better for our teachers, our community, and our students? That's what I want to be spending these meetings, you know, the time in these meetings on. So let's just put this to bed, please.
Okay. So we have a motion and it was seconded. So I will take a roll call vote. Sarah Gold, yes. Emily Barron,
Yes.
Megan Taylor,
Yes.
Sarah Fox.
Can you repeat the motion?
David, can you repeat the motion?
it was a motion to recommend that the school committee has not committed an open meeting law violation.
Did you hear that, Sarah?
No.
Sorry, it was a motion to state that the school committee has not committed an open meeting law violation at
Okay, so
at said date of the
Sarah,
event.
Emily, Megan, just to clarify, you all voted no violation, correct?
Correct.
Okay, I am going to vote in the affirmative of a violation. However, that means I have to vote because the verbiage of the motion
Yeah,
has me a little
I
bit turned
guess.
around, but I believe there was a violation.
David Harris.
I'll vote to support the motion. Yes.
Okay,
So-
so the motion is supported 4-1. I too don't have any problem taking an additional, or repeat of the open meeting segment from the MASC. So, I have no problem doing that. I can do it. I think there's been a lot of consternation around open meeting law this year. And, I'm not opposed to seeing it through again and then being able to talk better and more with more authority on it. Emily, did you have something?
Can I make one quick suggestion? I think we also need to talk about Facebook and what we can post and what we can't post, because this has been now the second time something that's come up on Facebook. Is it breaking open meeting law on Facebook? And so if Sarah needed to put, I'm saying this as not a school committee member, we need to figure this out, because now this is two things that have come up that have caused a lot of issues based on Facebook. So maybe that's something else as a committee we can figure out and make that more clear, because everyone has the right to say whatever they want. So I don't know, something to think about.
We can look at that over the summer as
That
well.
would be great.
We did last summer too. And it's
But-
Megan and I had taken a continuing course from MASC
Right.
at some point. And it certainly is a gray area.
Right.
Um,
But
so
it might help all of us in the future.
mhm,
Just
mhm, absolutely. I know that there's one hand raised, Yael. We can't just do public comment in the middle of a deliberation, so I apologize. Right. Okay, so that leads us to the end of our public meeting this evening. We do have an executive session posted, and we have no intent to come back to a public open session. So can I get a motion to meet in executive session pursuant to Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, for the following purpose. Purpose 3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining with the Marblehead Education Association, MEA, if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the school committee, and the chair so declares.
So moved.
Sarah moved.
I'll second.
Megan second. And again, just for the public, we have no intent to return to public session. All right, roll call vote. Sarah Gold, yes. Emily Barron,
yes.
Megan Taylor,
Yes.
Sarah Fox,
Yes.
and David Harris.
Yes.
All right, I will ask everyone who is not on the committee or Dr. Bucky and John Foskett to please exit the meeting. And we entered into executive session at 7:54. We'll give a few moments for people to sign off.
Sarah, I assume I'm taking minutes for this now.
She said yes, Sarah, please.
Yes, so Joan Miller is going Sorry, let me turn my video back on. Hot mess. Joe Miller was going to join us to give the MEA perspective before we hear from John Foskett and then deliberate. Hey, come on in. Actually, they're here, so we'll let them. Hi. So we've got a few people that are remote, so if you guys want to dial in, maybe. Yeah.
Can you just name for me who's in the room? I can see
Yes,
Sally
absolutely. Yep.
and
Sally and Joan.
okay, all right.
Sarah, they're going to log on, so they'll be on screen as well.
Admit. All right,
Okay.
Sally,
I just for the
admitted
minutes
you.
I wanted to right.
I think you should be okay.